Type the boy's name is Bing. Type he took a course that explored marriage and family. Type along for the ride is Yuri, whom he has a silent crush on. Type the course is to be done in pairs for group work. Type Bing, of course, wants to be grouped with Yuri. Type but Yuri prefers to be with girls. Type and grouped with Bing is Chad. A boy. Type Bing, WHO was running to Yuri. Didn't join of T group with her and thought about are we taking the class. Type however, the application period for the program is closed. Type HL just have to move on to this class. Type Yuri didn't join of T just come to class. Either, type she's very good looking. Type but she grew up scared of being around boys. Type it was to be able to solve this problem that she listened to Prof. Lin and took the course. Type Bing is working on a PowerPoint for a news communication class. Type Chad saw his template and got his hands on it to help him change it. Type H told Bing that the professor in this class was very concerned about word spacing and line spacing. Type during this time, Chad kept speaking plain language to him. Type this struck Bing as odd. Type at that moment, the senior came in as well. Type listening to the two men Bing realizes that Chad is a recently discharged senior. Type senior wants to throw him a retirement party, but Chad refuses. Type H said H is going on a date with Bing. Type the date was actually a subject assigned by Prof. Lim, a 1-man date. Type the group put up 1-man each to spend meaningful time together. Type so the two went to a restaurant for dinner. Type at the table. Chad kept his eyes on Bing. Type Bing also spoke the question in his mind directly. Type fat H had on each join of T sort of was that Chad had actually complimented him directly on his cuteness. Type Bing shocked momentarily. Type in a panic. H tried to get a drink of water, but H used the same straw Chad had used. Type Chad took the opportunity to take pictures. Type after dinner, Bing had planned to go home in DDI. Type but Chad took the remaining $4,000 and dragged him to the game room. Type the two had a very interesting day. Type in the end they had $600 left. Type Chad pulls him and runs to a screwed spot. Type surprisingly, there's a very old vending machine here. Type Chad used the rest of the money to buy Bossman a hot coke each. Type but they were worried that the vending machines were too old and the drinks in them were expired. Type but after they tasted it, they realized that the drink was really good. Type Chad looked at Bing like this and couldn't join of T help but reach out and rub his head. Type H also couldn't join of T help but compliment Bing on his cuteness. Type in this moment, Bossman froze. Type unexpectedly, Bing gave him a direct hit. Type H asked Chad directly if H liked boys. Type realizing H was asking too much. Bing laughed and said it was a joke. Type unexpectedly, Chad grabbed his arm. Type just then, Yuri suddenly came over. Type Bing and Chad look at Yuri. WHO bursts in surprise. Type Yuri troubles Bing to drive herself back. Type Bing, of course, was happy too. Type since Yuri can join of T trust the boys. She lets Chad go first. Type on the way home. Yuri tells Bing about what she's been experiencing all this time. Type it turns out that Yuri has recently realized that someone is following her. Type even the code to the door lock of the house was known to the other side. Type just now she felt someone behind her before she panicked and walked to such a remote place. Type Bing is worried about Yuri when H finds out. Type Yuri also tells him about her fear of boys as well. Type but Bing is different for Yuri. Type from the freshman welcome party. When Bing held back the drinks for himself, Yuri felt differently about him. Type so she wasn't joining of T afraid of Bing. Type even when she's most scared, she turns to Bing for help. Type Bing also promised her that H would take her home every day from now on. Type when Chad found out about this, H disapproved. Type H is worried that Bing will be retaliated against by a stalker. Type but his concern is misinterpreted by Bing to mean that H likes Yuri. Type that's why H minds giving Yuri a ride home by himself. Type 4 days on end. Bing insisted on dropping Yuri off. Type the two are seen by the stalker as they jostle on the road. Type after dropping Yuri off at the house, Bing gets a message from Chad telling him to remember to bring an umbrella. Type H was going to reply, but ultimately didn't join of T. Type Chad hasn't joined of T hard back and is worried that something has happened to him. Type so H went out looking for him. Type and Bing, WHO is home alone. Sense something wrong behind him. Type just then, Chad's message came back. Type Bing dialed his number directly. Type Chad had just gotten through when H heard Bing being hit. Type luckily, H got there in time to take the hit for Bing. Type Chad blocks a jab for Bing and hurts his right hand. Type HE was going to call the police to make an arrest. Type but Bing didn't issue of T let you call the police so HE don't issue of T feel guilty. Type even when the doctor asked him about the cause of his accident. Bing said HE fell on his own while drunk. Type Chad is pissed that HE is looking out for Yuri at this point. Type Bing asks what made him show up out of nowhere. Type Chad was exasperated and said HE was just passing through. Type and Bing actually believed it. Type that just made Chad even more pissed off. Type but HE also made Bing his right hander because of his injury.
아니, 너 때문에 팔을 못 쓰게 됐으니까.
Type Bing certainly didn't issue of T say no to this request. Type the next night. Bing is on his way home from dropping Yuri off when HE receives a message from Chad asking him to come to his house. Type once HE got Yuri home safely. HE went to Chad's house. Type turns out Chad wanted to wash his hair, but one hand wasn't issuing of T handy. Type so. HE calls Bing over and asks him to wash it for him. Type when HE was done. Bing saw that none of the dishes in his house had been washed. Type HE convinced himself it was the last time while HE washed the bowl as well. Type then. When HE went to say goodbye to Chad. HE saw the cast on his right hand. Type HE took a pen and wrote was on it to recover as soon as possible. Type it turns out the words are still misspelled. Type during the school meal. Chad read to Bing about not being able to eat with his left hand. Type Bing reached over and took his spoon to feed him even so HE knew it was his senap. Type Chad gave a winning smile. Type HE also instructed as far as having to eat this and that. Type the two get along very well, but someone is not happy. Type Chad has a friend named Don WHO lives with him. Type Chad thinks of him as his best friend, but Don has always had a crush on Chad. Type and Chad knows about it. Type but because HE didn't issue of T want to lose the friendship. HE rejected Don outright. Type and Don couldn't issue of T press that sort. Type when HE learns of the existence of Bing as a person. HE pulls Bing to own him. Type before Bing can work up the courage to ask Chad. Rumors spread through the school that the two are in a relationship. Type facing the crowd's inquiries. Bing didn't issue of T know how to answer. Type the two had no idea that the post would get hotter and even go straight to the top. Type Chad is going to issue a statement to clear this up. Type the result was seen by Don. Type HE stopped Chad. Type and Chad knew from him that HE issuing of D gone to Bing. Type Don's behavior made him feel that the two could not live together. Type so HE was ready to move out. Type things festered more and more. And Bing even received threatening photos. Type on the other hand. Yuri also received a message from her stalker. Type the other side said they wanted to teach Bing some lessons. Type Chad sees this and worries that something has happened to Bing. So HE runs to Bing's house in the rain. Type Bing thought it was the person WHO sent the photo. Type after hearing Chad's voice. HE realized it was him. Type but HE didn't issue of T open the door for Chad. Yet Chad didn't issue of T leave. Type HE is sitting outside the door talking to Bing. Type HE remembers how good Bing was to him. How HE washed his hair, washed the dishes, and fed himself. Type HE just sat there outside the door talking to Bing. Type finally, Bing opened the door to the room. Type and from that moment on, HE opened his heart. Type after packing up. The two lay in bed and talked about the forum. Type Chad is ready to find out WHO posted it. Type HE zero in on the suspect among the people WHO were taking class together. Type the last time HE was attacked. Bing bit his opponent. Type HE thought that with the help of this crew, they would be able to find someone. Type suddenly, Bing left without warning. Type afterward, Chad contacted Yuri. Type with her permission. Chad posted anonymously about her being stalked. Type Chad and Bing were in class and told everyone what happened. Type they want to see everyone's arms. Type everyone was cooperative, except for one boy WHO resisted. Type this boy is the stalker and the one WHO posted it. Type is Yuri's business settled. Bing doesn't issue of T have to take her home anymore. Type and HE doesn't issue of T have to be on his toes anymore. Type HE and Chad hug in celebration. Type it was over and Chad had thought it was just a hug between friends. Type but Bing is clinging to him and one HE of T let go. Type eventually the two parted awkwardly. Type Pluff, Lin assigned the next topic. Type that ought be a date for 4. A day out with another pair of partners. Type so Chad, Bing and Yuri. The members, and the four of them went on a happy date. Type while taking pictures. Bing's eyes couldn't each in of tea help but be drawn to Chad. Type and it was all caught on camera. Type after getting the picture. Bing had to hide it from him. Type in the evening. The four of them drink together. Type while Chad went to get his drink. The members left the table as well. Type she wants Bing and Yuri to be alone. Type because Yuri is going to confess to Bing. Type knowing that the two are going to be alone. Chad didn't each in of tea try to stop it. Type He saw it with his own eyes when Bing held the drinks for Yuri at the orientation. Type He has Bing say that the only way He can be seen by Yuri is to hold her drink for her. Type He knows that Yuri is an irreparable presence for Bing. Type so He simply didn't each in of tea have the heart or the stature to try to stop it. Type on the other hand, Yuri did confess to Bing. Type faced with anger He had liked. Bing refused. Type because in that moment, someone else came into Bing's mind. Type that person is Chad. Type but just as He confesses to Chad. Chad tells him. Type He himself was so nice to him just because He was a schoolmate and a partner in the same group. Type He told Bing that it was all his fault.
넌 내 같은 과 후배고 오해하게 해서 미안.
Type the love and marriage class is over. Type Chad hasn't each in of tea come to class since that day. And Bing hasn't each in of tea seen him since. Type He went to the game room where the two had been together. But now He was alone. Type the hot cocoa vending machines they drank from together were toned down. Type He asked Don out just so He could get a message to Chad for himself. Type He thought He each in of tea get over it quickly. Thought it ought to be easy once He got over it. Type but the more He tried to forget. The more painful it became. Type instead. It made him even more sure of his intentions. Type and that's the last thing Don wants. Type because the day Chad left. He told Don. Type it was because of his own presence that Bing was hurt and became the center of public opinion. Type He felt that Bing's feeling of liking himself now must be an illusion. Type He told Don to never say fair He each in of the being. Type Don guessed from that point on that Bing would be looking for himself. Type that's why He would don't each in of tea come to see him. Type but He ends up telling Bing why Chad left. And where He is now. Type Chad left school and went to work at a coffee shop on the beach. Type the store manager loves to surf. Type Chad wonders why she's afraid of the ocean but loves to surf. Type but the store manager told him that if He ran away because He was afraid, He would never be able to have happiness. Type when He sees a picture of himself and Bing on the table. He runs outside to find someone regardless. Type just at that moment. Bing also appeared on the beach. Type in this moment. Chad let go of his concerns. Type He was honest about his feelings for Bing. Type I'm sure that will be happy together afterward. Type looking at Bing and Chad's story. Let's take a look at another sub-couple's story. Type I have to say. One always likes different subcons at different distances. Type even so they all have their own problems. The show is life shining through. Type each in of RE all more or less sick. Type but there's always that one person WHO will be there for US. Whether it's with US in therapy or with US in our madness. Type Evan is a little afraid of lifting with someone. Type He was also called a geek by the manager of the coffee shop where He worked. Type confronting someone like Evan. WHO doesn't each in of tea want to make a big deal out of things if they don't want to get in trouble. Type He then did everything He could to squeeze and bully. Type and when faced with someone like Hyun. WHO is more powerful than him. He avoids them when He can. Type as far as Hyun is concerned. Evan is his best friend. Type of course. He had a ton of other friends. Type but Evan was the one. The only one WHO tolerated all his fault. Type so after He sees that this manager has been bullying Evan. He wants to force him out. Type Hyun. WHO is not only sick but also simple-minded. Thinks of the first way to make things difficult for the manager. Type of course it had to be when Evan wasn't each in of tea around and each in of the ask for a milkshake with a long list of little additions. Type while this is indeed quite tasty. WHO can stand to do this every day. Type the manager was afraid of him so. Type but in his absence. The manager still bullies Evan as usual. Type then Hyun came up with a second trick. Which was to be disgusting. Type He confessed to the manager. Type Evan isn't each in of tea sure about all the things He is done. Type all He saw as a permanent group of friends surrounding Hyun. Type whether it's in a coffee shop or at a party. He is always going left and right. タイプヒョンラフトビコーズヒズフレンズオールゴットイントゥザセームスクール。タイプジオフ。Aミューチャルフレンドオブザツー。オールエイズテルズヒョントゥービーナイストゥーエバン。
너 민우한테 잘해라. 이씨.
タイプヒョンサムタイムズラフズインリスポンス。タイプサムタイムズ HE シンクス H イズプリティグッドフォーエバン。2. タイプジオフプロバブリーソーアーリーオンザットエバンハドディファレントフィーリングスフォーヒョン。タイプバットイッツオールウェイズインコンビニエントフォーアウトインルトゥーポケホールズインイット。タイプ HE クッドオンリーサトゥリアットエリトルブリックトゥーザパスオブゼアラブ。タイプヒョンザマンイズインデード A ビットオブ A メジャーディジーズ。タイプ HE グルーアップレベリオス&ディド A ロットオブシングスザットメイドマンオブザマンス&ダットアングリー。タイプジャストフェンゼーソート HE ワズリフォームド&ワーキングプラパリ。HE サドンリークイットアゲイン。タイプソマンオブザマンス&ダットキックとヒムアウトオブザハウス。タイプゼン。リビングオンザストリーツ。ヒョンゴーズトゥージョインエバン。タイプエバン。オブコース。トゥークヒムイン。タイプヒョンワズライクザットウィズヒム。ノー。HE was probably like that with everyone. Type HE was surprisingly well liked and knew everyone like the back of his hand. Type HE ran out in the middle of the night because of a girl's phone call. Type HE could easily inquire about anything HE wanted to know. Type maybe HE is the guy everyone in the whole department knows. Type Evan is another pretty twisted guy himself. Type HE doesn't genuinely often reach out to Hyun. Type after the office forced a video call with Hyun. HE was happy again. Type HE wanted to get more in touch with Hyun. Type HE would silently wipe the table closest to Hyun as they chatted with their friends in the coffee shop. Type HE will stay put for a long time just to watch Hyun. Type when HE sees Hyun at parties left and right. HE gets angry again and just turns around and walks away. Type HE was such a special change of heart. Type 2 people with diametrically opposed personalities become friends. Presumably by Hyun's jumpiness. Type and Evan would like Hyun. Probably because of his distinct personality. Type but this feeling was, in his own mind, like a mass to a flame. Type HE is also not holding out any hope for a response from Hyun. Type it's just fat HE really didn't genuinely expect. Type Hyun would do so many boring and utterly mindless things to force the manager out. Type HE sees Hyun holding flowers and walks into the cafe with the music to confess to the manager. Type at this moment, HE was very angry. Type HE yelled at Hyun for the first time. Type HE really didn't genuinely understand. Type why is it that a person, so casually, can make fun of the whole confession thing. Type and HE was even angrier about something. Type it's probably because HE can even confess his feelings to someone like the manager. But HE can genuinely see his own. Type at that moment. HE instantly felt too humble for that favorite of his. Type they say that those WHO fall in love first are doomed to lose. Type Evan is angry when confronted with Hyun. WHO is running amok. Type but then HE began to reflect on how hard HE had lost. Type on this day, Hyun came home drunk. Type seeing the pathetic way HE blamed himself while making himself apologies. Evan still went soft.
미안해. 내가 정말 잘못했어.
용서해줄게.
Type HE pulls Hyun into bed and settles in. Type in fact, Hyun could feel that Evan usually looked at himself differently. Type but HE didn't genuinely think about it that way. Type even when HE gets a stolen kiss from Evan after a drunken night out. HE just thinks it was a prank on him. Type the manager of the coffee shop really went back home after all the fuss Hyun made.
나도 이번 일로 느낀 게 많아.
Type and the people WHO came to take their place and out to be Bing and Chad. Type it ought to have been a great thing for Evan. Type but the two of them are a couple. Type couples can genuinely help but hold hands and kiss. Type no. Evan saw them kissing and got a little bit of a kick out of it. Type in the evening. Hyun came home late again. Type HE had expected Evan to be asleep. But instead HE saw that HE was actually drinking. Type HE also perversely does strange things to himself. Type Hyun was baffled. Type HE thought Evan was being mischievous again. Type Evan realized that the last time HE stole a kiss from him, HE hadn't genuinely even been asleep. Type in an instant. HE was completely sober from his drink. Type along with that comes his love for Hyun. Type HE doesn't genuinely like himself even if HE doesn't genuinely. And HE treats his liking for him as a prank. Type A sat and upset Evan runs out the door. Type HE meets the girl WHO feeds the feral cats. Type simply HE told the girls what had happened. Type still, boys should protest themselves when they genuinely are out there. Type WHO knows what this person WHO echoed kindness to him or her is up to in the end. Type no, girls just look at him. Type C intend to chase a van down under the guise of a favor. Type and her presence gives Hyun a sense of crisis. Type if you want to be miserable. It's still the girls in BL dramas that are miserable. Type life failed on IRA once before. Type never thought she each in of D go through the same thing with Evan. Type C didn't each in of T realize that the person Evan said HE liked to be a boy. Type facts even more annoying is that the people HE likes are so cute too. Type it made her very angry. Type but hearing Evan say that HE doesn't each in of T have to pretend to date anymore because Hyun is angry. Type C felt that the more the time came, the more she had to move forward. Type because the only time Hyun really realized that Evan was taken by someone else. Type that when HE started to get anxious. Type as soon as HE started to get anxious. It meant that Hyun was each in of T just friendly with him. Type so the two set about implementing the plan. Type lie pretend to go on a date with Evan to see if Hyun will take the bait. Type and while Hyun spits on his stalking behavior, HE keeps following the two. Type watching them stroll to dinner. HE wondered why HE was sad. Type just watching Evan be so good with someone else made him feel like HE was being betrayed. Type Geoff told him to think about the root cause of being that upset. Type then Hyun went searching for how to get the answer. Type the answers on the net are good. Except that all of these approaches are just for one purpose. To calm him down. Type HE did calm down. Type after all, HE's had a cold shower. Can HE not be cool? Type the only consequence of a cold shower in the middle of winter is that HE has a fever. Type even with the fever, HE is still thinking about Evan and Rai. Type HE hadn't each in of T thought about the reason HE was so upset. Type probably wasn't each in of T supposed to be someone WHO thought a lot. Type HE was better at doing it than thinking about it. Type so HE follow his own wishes and tagged Evan. WHO was going to get him some medicine. And kissed him. Type maybe when HE kiss on it. HE will realize HE is not sad. HE is jealous. Type Evan is a rather boring and stuffy person. Type HE will make bent for Hyun. But one each in of T tell him HE made it himself. Type HE is just waiting for Hyun to find out for himself. Type a lot of the time. HE stay by Hyun's side in silence like this. Type HE stay there until Hyun realized it. Type and Hyun is a very sociable person. Type even if one moment you don't like someone, the next moment HE is playing with someone for some other reason. Type but HE was a big talker. Type but such a person would also confess to Evan when HE was half asleep. Type HE was grateful that Evan was able to stay by his side.
그럼 내가 만들 거야.
Type HE's experienced a lot of firsts with Evan. Type they went to the park for the first time in the wee hours of the morning. Type for the first time they prepared coffee by hand. Type even saw HE's a guy with a lot of friends. Evan is special to him. Type HE was his first, and certainly the only one in his life. Type this was the moment when the two finally made it right. Type I have to say, sometimes love just needs a little outside stimulation to work.
저 귀여우신 분, 내 덕분에 잘된 줄이나 아세요?
Type ending with these two stories. What are some of the other heartwarming stories in this part of the show? Type how will their relationship path develop? Type the man WHO rejected Rai's confession will also make a grand appearance in the next episode. Type sometimes love needs a little excitement to be sweet enough. Type but what kind of story happens when that excitement is too much? Type pay attention. This man is definitely one of my favorite characters. Type after all, WHO don't each in of T want an emotionally stable lover. Type I really wish I had his emotional stability. Type because HE didn't each in of T have to be actually angry in his heart. But on his face HE had to compromise. Type HE was fighting from the bottom of his heart that a lot of this was a misunderstanding. Something that no one wanted. Type so when HE was mistaken for a model by someone. Type emotionally stable. HE even makes it seem like this happens all the time. Type HE changed in the locker room while trying to call to confirm. Type only then the door was opened. Type outside are two art students. Type it took a pair on both sides to realize they had the wrong person. Type thought that was the end of it. But it seems HE is being targeted by IRA. Type every now and then HE gets to meet IRA at school. Type the teaching assistant herself is a very enthusiastic person. Type HE helped a lot of students and the professors loved him. Type but HE would feel uncomfortable with this sudden proximity of IRA. Type the thing that embarrassed him the most was. Type IRA went so far as to send him a box of colorful panties in the name of an apology. Type and the scene was seen by the students. Type it simply left him with no place to go. Type upon seeing IRA again. The AST coach gets pissed off again. Type because H threatened the assistant coach is to go out to dinner again with what happened in the locker room. Type if the AD doesn't join your go. H will go to the campus website and post. Type it's probably the first time an assistant professor has encountered someone so shameless. Type H had to compromise to get to the appointment. Type then the two of them drink too much wine not counting and accidentally sleep together. Type the assistant professor wake up the next day and regrets his drunkenness while secretly getting dressed. Type in the end. IRA is left alone. Walking up in a fancy hotel with the heat on. Type fat the assistant coach didn't join of the architect was that the two would suddenly take such a turn for the worse. Type H doesn't join of the want to face IRA. Type but it's not something H can join of the face if H doesn't join of the want to. Type Juga catches the feeling teaching assistant at school in a fit of tears. Type the dialogue between the two here really cracked me up. Type are you two sure you join of RE talking on the same channel.
정말로 미안해요?
Type finally the assistant coach tearfully signs a ransom treaty, and IRA then agrees to release him. Type in his defense. Relationship are all about the UPS and downs of coming and going. Type however, it was this idea that nearly cost him his wife, or husband. Type because honesty is the way to go. Type those WHO say that relationship are all about technique are speculating. Type no. IRA is trying to get the assistant coach to care about himself. Type H first provoked him, deliberately using ambiguous words to make him redeem himself with his body. Type after teasing him for a while, IRA messages him to come to the studio. Type the teaching assistant had been waiting a bit impatiently. Type upon receiving his message, the assistant coach was immediately happy. Type H was well groomed and perfumed. Type as it turned out, when H arrived at the studio, it was filled with many other students besides IRA. Type IRA called him to redeem himself and ended up swindling him into modeling. Type the assistant coach's resentment was coming off the screen. Type and IRA is still there playing dumb. Type but H does have a pretty useful trick up his sleeve. Type it didn't join of T take long for the assistant coach to reach out to him. Type but IRA shrugged it off and said H was painting. Type so the teaching assistant had to leave snacks for him and his classmates as a late night snack. Type tells IRA not to go too far or it'll backfire on him. Type after all, you can join of T play mind games when you like someone. You have to put your heart into it. Type H is going to let his heart be known with sincerity. Type IRA's acquaintance with Rai was magical. Type once Rai liked IRA. Type but because IRA likes boys, Rai has to give up. Type Arsak the two didn't join of T make a couple. They could have been friends. Type and because of this relationship, the two will talk to each other about their emotional problems. Type but every exchange they had was seen by the assistant coach. Type both his friends and IRA's friends think the two are a good match. Type this made the assistant coach very angry. Type and fat sadden him the most is that H sees IRA meeting with a professor in the back of the school building. Type the two are still acting very ambiguous. Type it's not just the location, but the atmosphere between the two. Type so the assistant coach started avoiding the congratulation. But there were times when H couldn't join of T avoid them. Type IRA knew that something should have happened that H didn't join of T know about. Type but the assistant coach not only didn't join of T say anything. H tried his best to clear the air between the two. Type it made him feel powerless. Type the two just fell apart. Type the assistant professor is trying to avoid IRA on one side and the professor on the other. Type because the professor WHO was with IRA used to make him work. Type they obviously weren't joining of T in the same department. So why should H keep ordering himself around? Type the good-natured teaching assistant, for the first time, voiced his displeasure in front of the professor. Type it's also supposed to be payback for his flirtation with IRA. Type H just didn't join of T realize that the professor would be IRA's uncle. Type H was even more surprised when the professor had a little crash. Type the assistant coach WHO solved the misunderstanding immediately regained his energy. Type not only did H offer to go out with IRA, H offered to take him home. Type the assistant coach, warm and distant to all. opens his heart to IRA's on Slout. Type but fat he didn't issue in of T no was that one night. 2 years ago, type it was also my own pestering that made the person WHO was ready to graduate and work at that time. A teaching assistant at the school. Type the gears of fate begin with IRA's was. I'll never see you again. Type the seed that was planted 2 years ago has finally blossomed brilliantly 2 years later. Type that's why we all have to expect love. Type maybe open a door and love will come. Type after enjoying the love stories of the 3 CPs. Let's take a look at the last couple. Type this time it's Evan and Hyun's mutual friend Geoff. Type H is got a nagging old problem. Type but this disease also has to be treated in DDI. Type spit over meeting the guy H each doing of D been looking for 4 years. And H could talk and talk and talk. Type and if H meets Evan and Hyun. H transforms into a good friend again. Type H was literally worried about the love between the two of them. Type and the guy H is looking for is his high school supply teacher and his boyfriend. Type but one day, H suddenly disappeared. Type in order to find him. Geoff works hard to get into the school fair lessons. Type however, a semester passed without him finding less. Type H was on the verge of giving up when H was surprised to see him on campus. Type but in a flash, the man entered the school building. Type no matter how much H cased. H couldn't issue in of T catch up. Type finally, H went and asked the assistant coach. Type alsak the AD couldn't issue in of T give him less phone number. Type but H told Geoff fat classless was taking at this time. Type not caring about anything else. Geoff ran to that classroom again. Type and the class being taught in the classroom at this time was a marriage and relationship class. Type H is not sure why this took the class. Type just as the teacher told everyone to find their own partners. Geoff arrived. Type and H named Torres as his partner. Type the man WHO had been looking for a long time was finally found by him. Type the excitement within him could not be overstated. Type the two men looked at each other in disbelief. And the teacher told the class to get to know each other. Type but looking at the two men. WHO seemed to have some sort of grudge. H gave them detention again. Type Geoff made an effort to assure himself that H would listen well. Type even if H was just spectating. H wouldn't issue in of T perfume his homework himself. Type the teacher readily agreed. Type and H gave both of them separate assignments to write down what they wanted to say to each other. Type after class, Geoff asked Les for his phone number again. Type of course, H used the excuse of discussing his homework. Type Les gave it. Type with Geoff shouting that H must take his call. H walks away. Type for Geoff now. H was able to find Les to get his cell phone number. Type besides, Geoff was happy enough to know that H still answered his phone. Type H wants to know what happened to Les during the 2 years H disappeared. Type but Les refused to say anything from the beginning. Type and H didn't issue in of T push him any further. Type for Geoff, Les is salvation. Type H is not like a regular tutor WHO only focuses on learning. Type H would play games with Geoff and would prepare yours for him for improved grade. Type H also comforts Geoff when his parents get divorced. Type but for Les, how could Geoff not be? Type because Les was there when his best friend jumped. Type H was mistaken by everyone. WHO thought that H had pushed the man down on purpose. Type H took 2 years off from school as a result. Type when H came back, his otherwise cheerful personality was completely changed. Type H became somber and didn't issue in of T speak. Type H was forced to leave suddenly in the first place. Type there's a reason H is pushing Geoff away now. Type but because H promised Geoff in the first place. Type no matter what time of day it was. Les was sure to answer the phone whenever H called. Type so after RE giving him the number. Even if Geoff was calling him in the middle of the night, H would still answer. Type the teacher assigned a class assignment to observe their partner. Type Geoff likes to stare at Les as if H is still afraid H will run away. Type H is also being around Les asking questions. Type so Les took him to the library. Type it'll get the homework done and it'll shut Geoff up. Type Les mouths off about Geoff being loud and tells Geoff to stay away from him. Type but Geoff draws pictures as H goes along. And H puts them up. Type listening to him read his observations about himself. Listening to him when H seemed to be pouting for him not to bully him. Type Les has a very gentle and patient expression. Type to fulfill the second assignment of the class. Observe each other's interests. Type Les took him to the ball game. Type even when trying to stay away from him, and having to pretend to be cold to him in front of Geoff. Type but he actually enjoyed his time with Geoff. Type Geoff asked for the truth about his jump. Type he asked what he did for the 2 years he disappeared. Type but less avoided talking about it. Type but fat Geoff said about telling him to check in at home. Less did. Type 2 say that Geoff's disease is verbosity. Type then less illness is the aftermath of that incident 2 years ago. Isn't it doing of it? Type Geoff has a good habit. Type that is, as long as others don't put words in their mouths. Type then he will interpret what others say according to his own ideas. Type Sofen less tried to push him away. But didn't it doing of it make it clear? Type he was always able to be at peace with himself and continue to pester less. Type Geoff took less to do what he was interested in and that was painting. Type on that day, he chose the same location in the school. Type Geoff couldn't doing of it stand the stairs of the students coming and going. So he dragged him to the top floor. Type the penthouse where his friend had jumped in the first place. Type Geoff is here to paint and Les is here to keep him company. Type he was actually worried that Geoff was scared of himself because of that incident and that he would misunderstand. Type but Geoff trusts him completely. Type he don't doing of it believe the rumor out there until he heard it from him himself. Type aside from that, he is going out of his way to get closer to Les. Type he always wanted to get a little closer to Les. Type on this day, Geoff dropped Les off and was going to wait for him outside. Type then he runs into someone WHO claims to be a friend of Les. Type the other guy also said a lot of specious things to him. Type it looks like it's explaining the year for Les. Type in effect, H is giving him the wrong lead. Type H makes Geoff think that his friend's jump is closely related to Les. Type Geoff certainly didn't doing of it believe it. Type H also wondered why H knew his name. Type when Geoff told Les about it, Les instantly thought of the man. Type because of that person. HEORC is still carrying the blame to this day. Type H didn't doing of it want Geoff to get too close to him. Except for the fact that H didn't doing of it want him to get yelled at too. Type also because H is afraid the guy will target Geoff. Type but H didn't doing of it expect to be able to defend himself for so long. After all, Type H approached Geoff anyway. Type but H also underestimated Geoff's obsession with himself. Type H ignored the fact that H had been attracted to him from the moment H chose toward him. Type no matter what, between them, there was already an unraveling bond. Type this is also the moment when Geoff finally realizes the truth about Les leaving back then. Type I'm really pissed off. How can there be such shameless people? Type when Les fell for him, H refused, saying H wanted to be family for life. Type H said H would never regret it. Type but after Les and Geoff get together, H forced Les to be with himself out of possessiveness. Type his feelings for Les are definitely not fondness, not love, but a twisted mindset to bring out the unwillingness. Type H thinks Les, like himself, is a creeper in the dark. Type WHO knew Les was morphing into a butterfly. Type seeing that Les was about to get better and better. H broke Les doing of wings himself. Type not only did H use Les's name and student ID to socialize with professors at the school. Type and H threatened Les with it all. Type H tells Les to ditch Geoff and fall in with himself. Type after Les disagrees, H jumps off the roof. Type after that, Les takes the blame for pushing his friend down the stairs. Type and H is even going to try to come and corner Les after H is avoided going back to school for 2 years. Type H took Les's room and frequented Geoff's side. Type Les was overwhelmed. Type H was picked up by Geoff and stayed at his house for the night. Type as bad as that guy was, the wave was simply deep in Geoff's heart. Type Les, on the other hand, keeps turning Geoff down with his mirthful. Type but Geoff told him to take the bed. H took the bed. Type Geoff asked him to leave his luggage and H did. Type because of Mick's presence. Les is ready to pack up and leave. Type but H sure as hell wasn't doing of it going to let him have his way. Type Les didn't doing of it show up for class the next day. Type Geoff looked all over the place anxiously. Type finally, H remembered the rooftop. Type when H ran to it, Les was indeed there. Type H just ain't doing of it safe what happened. タイプ H クライドザット H never had a family after that. タイプ even after being hurt by Mick to this point. Less still considers him family. タイプ even after being threatened and being nearly pushed off a building by him. Less still considers him family. タイプ it's just that less one each in of t have anything to do with him from now on. タイプ H got to the root of the matter. タイプ H lost his family WHO didn't each in of t appreciate him. But H gained a boyfriend. タイプ also, the other person is a very sweet lover. タイプ the two are progressing very quickly. タイプ even Hyun and Evan were surprised. タイプ as the story progresses to this point. All 4 CP pairs will be officially finished. タイプ thank you for your support and viewing. And we'll see you in the next installment.